The first rule of a startup is don't run out of money. And the second rule is don't forget rule number 1. This is true regardless of the industry that we're in, and so making sure that the team has the appropriate financial resources to continue to build as long as it takes to get the product fully launched is critical. With the announcement of the upcoming elections for Illuvium's council, it's a perfect time for us all to stop and take stock of the upcoming challenges and opportunities that Illuvium faces. I want to thank everyone who's encouraged me to consider running for a position among the Illuvium Council, and I'm pleased to announce today that I will be submitting myself as a candidate for this upcoming epoch. I have a great many projects that I follow and support in Web3 gaming, but none excite me as much as Illuvium. So let's see today what Annie knows about what are Illuvium's next moves. I see 6 focal points for the next epoch. Let's talk about what each of those are, as well as what are the key moves that Illuvium needs to make to position itself for success. The focal points are, first, steer alpha and beta gameplay and the economic integration between them. Secondly, begin the ramp up of marketing, including to Web2 gamers. Thirdly, finalize critical infrastructure integration as well as partnerships with other vendors, supporters, and Web3 gaming projects. Fourth, ensure the financial stability of the overall project, including revenue sources, the burn rate, and the overall runway for the team. Fifth, implement governance version 2 for future positioning and sustainability of the protocol. And lastly, prepare for the future title development after the initial 3 titles are out and launched. So when it comes to steering the alpha and beta versions of gameplay and the economic integration, we already know that the private beta is out and PB2 is looking very, very good. With the early reports of the alphas for Illuvium 0 and the overworld, we can be very confident that during this next epoch, we'll see gameplay emerge for all 3 of the core titles. The Council's core responsibility here is to ensure that player feedback and market sentiment and research is leveraged well to ensure that we strike the right balance between speed to launch into the market as well as the appropriate high level of quality that the project demands. Private Beta 2 continues to deliver meaningful content, and the arena is looking great. However, game balance, quality of life improvements, and the eventual launch of the PvP mechanics ensure that there's a lot of work to be done. PB3 is just around the corner, I'm sure, and so we need to be focused on this as community members and as the council to ensure that the final product is as good quality as we can get. Additionally, because Illuvium is an interoperable blockchain game, meaning that all 3 of the titles are closely interconnected in their economic impact, the focus needs to be on making sure there's a sustainable economic structure and interplay between the titles. The design work has been put in place already. Aaron and the team have done a great job ensuring that the structures fit, the NFT, the token, the integration of the fuel is designed very well. But there's going to be a lot of nuance that needs to go into the final tweaking, and in some cases, there will be decisions that impact the real-world economy as well. And so this needs to be done with care, and the feedback from the community needs to be relied upon for the overall success of the project. With actual meaningful gameplay available, it's time to begin turning up the ratchet on the marketing of the product. So whether we're talking about gamers or investors, Q1 and Q2 of 2023 are the right time for us to begin easing our foot back onto the gas pedal for marketing. In a bear market, it made sense for us to wait while the products were still being developed. There's no sense in trying to bring people into the community when there's no call to action for them to respond to. However, now it makes sense for us going into next year to begin taking a closer look at that and ensuring that we're beginning to bring players and investors back into the ecosystem. This is true whether we're talking about the gameplay through Illuvium 0 Land, which is already available on the secondary markets, or the Illuvitar sale that can provide additional revenue for the team and Illuvium token holders. In all cases, it's time for us in the first and second quarter of next year to begin turning that back up. The broader economic circumstances that we find ourselves in globally is a concern. However, with good gameplay and meaningful content available, those are not going to be a primary issue for most gamers. The question is the game engaging, and am I willing to spend money to play it? I think the answer will be yes. It's just a matter of when's the exact right time to ratchet up to 100. So speaking of the overall increase in marketing, it's also time for us to continue looking for some new partnerships and integration partners that may be necessary for the game to be successful. The IMX and the GameStop integrations are enormous for the future success of Illuvium. This epoch will be time to finalize those and so many more. A lot of infrastructure players like Arcade and Polymos, supporters like ETH Lizards, and guilds like Wildfire, Banana DAO, YGG, and so forth need to be fully integrated, and new partners need to be identified. For instance, projects like Altered State Machine have announced partnerships with FIFA, and we see every day new and existing corporations in the Web 2 industry that are latching on to projects in the Web 3 space that want to be able to support and be supported by all of the activity that's going on in the overall blockchain and Web 3 gaming space. So it's our time to continue to get involved with these partnerships and push heavily on that ecosystem to ensure that we're building out things with the right key players so that our investors and our gamers' experience is strong. Also up for the coming epoch is ensuring that we have the right financial stability for the project to continue. This includes taking a look at everything from revenue sources and burn rates to the overall runway of the team, matching everything up together. The first rule of a startup is don't run out of money. And the second rule is don't forget rule number 1. This is true regardless of the industry that we're in, and so making sure that the team has the appropriate financial resources to continue to build as long as it takes to get the product fully launched is critical. As we've discussed at length within the community, there's additional discussions about capital raises, revenue sources that can be added, and hard choices are always going to be made to make sure that we have the right sustainable structure. As the team has been unwilling to compromise on quality of the product and the in-game development, or the overall launch timing, it's necessary for us as a community to look at other means in which we can achieve that goal. This needs to include a combination of revenue opportunities, whether it's through game launches, a Illuvitar sale, etc., potential capital raises that we may need to do, which have been in great discussion. I've had a chance to interview Kieran and talk through this recently. I'll put the link in the description to that video. But overall, making sure that we have the lowest burn rate is also essential. So all of those taken into account will be essential for this upcoming epoch, and we should begin to see some revenue kick in towards the tail end of that time window, I expect. So, speaking about the duration of the overall epoch, I expect this will be a shortened version. The simple reason is that Governance version 2 should be launching during this next 6-month window. In fact, by the time this video gets launched, we may already have been announced that there may be an IAP under discussion. So, what does that mean for the project? Well, the first version of Governance, I think, served its purpose very well in the early stages of the project. However, it's designed with a DeFi protocol in mind, where the token stakers are really the primary shareholders that are involved in the ecosystem and projects. However, once gamers begin to come into the space, all of a sudden the incentives begin to change dramatically, and as a project we need to ensure that we're sustainable with both the gameplay as well as the economic side, whether it's marketing the broader ecosystem around the game universe. So it is essential that during this epoch, the Council is able to ensure that it takes the feedback from the community at large for the updated version of governance, is able to pass that to set up the sustainable economic and governance structures that are going to be needed to take Illuvium from an early stage investment and development project into a fully launched project of a game development studio with 3 existing titles. That's going to be difficult work, but it's essential to ensure that we have multi-year sustainability in mind for the overall protocol to be successful. In addition to the overall work the Council needs to be doing over this upcoming epoch, I also will be sharing with you as a community my thoughts on governance. So firstly, I'd like to point anyone who hasn't seen it to my video on the ECG structure of Web3 gaming DAOs that I proposed previously. I'm going to put the link in the description below. Additionally, I have a very special guest that all of you watching this video are aware of that I'm going to be interviewing in just a couple weeks that should be able to provide some really interesting feedback on how governance and DAOs need to evolve specific to Web3 games. So make sure you like and subscribe to this video. You won't want to miss that interview. So as we know, those 3 titles will carry us for a number of years into the future, but the development lifecycle for additional activities is long. And so over this next epoch, I also expect that we'll begin to have some further serious discussions about what comes next, whether it's expansions to the existing titles that we have or potentially new future titles that need to be developed. All of this takes center stage as we get the existing versions of the game fully launched. It doesn't sound like the dating simulator is going to be a real possibility, but should we build an FPS, a MOBA? What about a racing or sports title, a simulator game? All of these and more are possible, and there's trade-offs between each in terms of development time, potential revenue, and number of gamers brought into the ecosystem, the overall integration with the existing 3 titles so that this interactivity and interoperability of the assets is meaningful. All of this is going to matter dramatically, and this version of the council needs to begin to develop and set up a future structure for the long-term success of future games beyond the first 3 titles that we see today. It may feel like it's too early to begin talking about it, but if we're looking at a potential 2-year development window, 2023 is appropriate if we're looking at a 2025-2026 launch for the next version of titles that need to come out within the broader ecosystem.